Join us as we discuss Ocarina of Time on the second ever episode of the Time Hop Podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Time Hop Podcast, the second ever episode. I'm your host, David Lozada. I'm joined with Tim Ronan.
Hello.
In case you don't know, it's Tim. In case you don't know, the Time Hop Podcast is a podcast that plays games of the past to let you know if they're worth playing today. Today's topic is Ocarina of Time. It's the 20th anniversary. Man, I'm old. How do you feel about that, Tim?
Well, first off, is it Ocarina or Ocarina?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I always said Ocarina, but some people say Ocarina.
That's true. I have heard it said I've heard it as Ocarina. I'm gonna say Ocarina, like you, for consistency's sake.
I mean, that's just the way I've said it. So that's what I'm sticking with.
What's the Nintendo pronunciation? Do you know?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. But before we get to that, let's talk about our Thanksgiving. Tim, how was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was filled with thanks and various forms of giving.
As all Thanksgiving should.
Food and turkeys and fall things, because that's what it's all about.
And balls?
No, that's what it's all about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. That is what I thought you said balls or something there. I was like,
I mean, you can throw a couple of those in there if you want, but
sure, if you're into that sort of thing. Yeah.
No, it was nice. Good food and
that's great.
All that.
That's great. I went to my parents' house. We had some really nice lasagna. It was really good. The type of that kind of like melts in your mouth. So good. So good.
Yeah, it was on his. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
I just had some recently.
Lasagna?
I did, yeah.
Oh. Anything special? Like any special ingredients?
I don't think so. Just standard stuff. But
just standard lasagna. Nice.
Yep.
It's always the homemade, the one that's made with the homemade ingredients that is the best. The stuff that like you buy at the freezers and in the supermarkets, they could be hit or miss. Let's move on to the news that stuck out to us this week. Before we go back to the past, let's explore the present. So, Tim, what's the news story that stuck out to you this week?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about Fallout 76. Maybe last podcast. Is that true?
We might have, yeah.
I can't remember. We probably did. But, and if we did, it's because it wasn't doing so well, and it seems to not be doing any better these days.
Yep.
Now, I think a few days ago, Bethesda was facing a lawsuit over it, just because I guess people are trying to refund it, because obviously it's not. There's some really, really like game-breaking stuff about this. Like I think there's this one glitch where I think it's just called like the damage glitch or something, but people will, I think, drop to like next to no health, but then after that they can't take any more damage or die, so they're basically immortal, I guess. And I think that's locked into your character once that happens.
Oh, that's right. I've heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's obviously not such a great thing.
I think. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. It just obviously it takes a lot of if there was any challenge to be had in the first place, that completely gets rid of it because now you can't die, so you can just go wherever you want.
Right.
I guess that means you could even go to radiated areas, which are normally very like you can't go in them unless you have like the gear and stuff for that. But I guess with this you could blaze right through it and not really have a problem, which obviously really messes up like the game flow and whatnot.
I wonder if like the borders of West Virginia are like radiated, if they're drawn that way. I don't know. I don't really know too much about like how it was designed. I know it's supposed to be pretty big, right? I think it's the biggest Fallout ever made. But
that's what they say.
Right. I'm not sure if that's if that's true, because a lot of the information coming out from this game is just negative PR pretty much. Otherwise everything else is just there's very little like hard news about it. So I don't know. But yeah, I've heard about this glitch, and I think one of the reasons why that is because when you're like traveling with other, when you see NPCs and stuff like that, not NPCs, other characters in the game world, because it's an online game if you don't know, you could shoot them, right? But if you shoot them, they won't take damage. They will take damage if they shoot back at you, because that'll initiate like PvP type of thing. So maybe it has something to do with that, the glitch. I'm not sure. Do you think that the developers kind of programmed that wrong? I don't know. I'm referring to you because you probably know more about a developer perspective than I. But what do you think?
Well, I mean, I haven't. I mean, I haven't picked the game up myself, and I probably don't plan to. So I don't have first-hand experience with it, but it can be hard to say sometimes because bugs can be very chaotic, and there might be a really random reason why something's happening, and it can be hard to narrow that down to something that actually makes sense.
Right.
So yesterday or day before or something, they've now pushed out a roadmap of things that they're going to be fixing, and they've set sort of a timestamp of dates of when they're going to be making changes and tweaks to different things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's their effort to... Because they were kind of silent for a while, but now they've come forth with something, I guess, and now they're going to try and pave the way for a better future.
Try to swing things around, yeah. Because, I mean, it must be a financial nightmare for them. I think it was marked down to like $40 within a week.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, guys, that's not good.
It's really bad. And, not to change subject, but Battlefield 5, it was marked down even worse to $30 within a week.
Oh, wow.
It's insane.
Yeah,
that's insane.
That's not great.
That's insane. That's a 50% markdown on your... What? That's
Yeah.
crazy. But anyway, I think they're trying to just salvage what they can, and then try to pull like No Man's Sky, so to speak, and kind of like release these content patches like as soon as they can. So then like they could say, hey, the game is good now, and then maybe they could, try to sell us the expansion, because there's no doubt like some kind of expansion pass, down the line that they planned of some sort. I mean, it's a massive online world, something similar to like Elder Scrolls Online. It's like the Fallout version of Elder Scrolls Online, right? So like there must be something later on that they planned, some kind of financial motive, and again, they're just trying to like build out this foundation so that they can kind of it's what is it? What's the term that they use? It's a service. Games as a service. There you go. Games as a service model. and it's just one game world where you're just constantly buying into it. You're constantly purchasing through the game world. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I think they're going to try to do. There's no, if they can't salvage what they can, like I'd say by early next year, the latest, they're probably just going to scrap. They're probably just going to, count their losses and just be done with it. And like the service of this game will be done in a couple years, like 2-3 years, if they can't salvage it.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
And they'll just focus on Elder Scrolls 6.
A lot of places are going that direction.
Yeah, so I don't know. Really don't know. But I mean, I think, and I read this, I think earlier today. I don't remember where. No, I think it was on Reddit, on Fallout 76's official Reddit page, and someone pointed out this, was that the bugs in the game aren't really too, they're not too different from what we've, at least Bethesda fans are used to experiencing in other Bethesda games. So like Skyrim, for instance, when that came out, it was a mess. I mean, especially on PS3, I don't know if you remember. But when did Skyrim release? It was November 2011, right? I believe so. Yeah, for the first time.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
I did get it eventually, but I think it was after like the initial launch. At least after definitely the initial launch. I don't know how long after, but
right. I think in a year or so they actually kind of, fixed all their bugs and stuff, and they patched it. But I mean, at the outset, the PS3 version, even thinking back to Fallout 3 on PS3, that game was unplayable. It was unplayable. I remember all the reviews, all of the even the expansions that they released for Fallout 3, or the DLC, let's say, that was all unplayable. And eventually, when they came out of the Game of the Year edition and stuff like that, it was more fleshed out. It was actually stable, but it's the same thing. And I think players, like, they realize this, but they don't want it anymore. You know what I'm saying? We just had freaking Red Dead Redemption 2, which is one of the most eye-opening open world games ever, and they're they're bugs, obviously, because it's an open world game. I mean, duh. But like, still, compared to Bethesda, Red Dead Redemption 2's open world is near perfect. So I think people are like seeing this disparity, and they're going like, listen, I've had enough. We don't want this to keep happening, especially like going forward with Elder Scrolls 6, with the inevitable Fallout 5, with Starfield, which we don't really know much about it, but it's presumably going to be some kind of open world RPG, right? So, yeah, I think people are just fed up.
I mean, also probably part of that is, I wonder what it would be like if this was built as a traditional Fallout game, as just a single player experience with those NPCs, with the quests, with all that structure there.
Right.
I guess if that was the case, perhaps a lot of these problems wouldn't exist, because there's a lot of things that had to go into place in order to make the multiplayer work. So we'd probably see a lot of those things go away. I mean, there'd still be probably tons of things left, but I wonder if it was even the same. If all those problems were still there, I wonder how people would feel about it.
Right.
Versus, like, as it being a single player game versus what it is now. Because people were already not getting something that maybe they wanted.
Mm-hmm. I think I don't know. That's a good point, because the game isn't kind of fulfilling its promises, at least what it advertised. Let's be honest. I mean, even the cinematic trailer had, groups of friends kind of like, fighting alongside each other in this post-apocalyptic environment, and it was kind of conveying this sense of having fun in the apocalypse with your friends. And is it possible in Fallout 76? Yeah, of course, but like those moments are, it seems, are few and far in between, you know. And yeah, it's just kind of, I agree. I feel like if it were a single player experience, just as is, I don't know if it would have panned out as well. Just because Fallout 4, it was received well by critics, from what I recall. But a lot of fans think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of fans think that Fallout 4 is kind of like, I don't know, it didn't change much from Fallout 3. It was kind of like Fallout 3.5, so to speak. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, also, I mean, probably among one of the biggest complaints was what felt like a watering down of some of the narrative elements, because your interaction with people ultimately became a positive response, a negative response, a sarcastic response, or like some other, or oh, that's right, okay, a positive response, a negative response, sarcastic, and then a question to ask for like clarification. You know, you just press A, B, X, or Y, instead of traditionally where you have like a whole list of all these different choices, and it gives you a good idea of what you're going to say. Whereas in Fallout 4, you'd have like 2 words next to the A button. It's like, well, I guess that kind of sounds like what I want to say, and then you press that and select it. But then what your character actually says is like, wait, that's not actually what I thought that was going to be.
I actually think about this. I think I know what you mean, because someone put Fallout 2's character choices in like branching dialogues in a video, and they put that side by side, I think, or they cut that together with Fallout 4's, and it was like so. Fallout 2's was like so astronomically more intelligent than Fallout 4's. Did you see this video, or have you played Fallout 2?
A little bit, yeah. I've played all of like Fallout 1 and 3, and New Vegas, and 4.
I don't know if this is in 1.
I can see what they're saying.
I don't know if this is in 1, but like, I mean, obviously those Fallout 1 and 2 are much more, text driven, I suppose, right? If I haven't played them, but from what I've seen, they look more text driven. So
the first 2?
Yeah, the first 2.
Oh yeah, I mean they're like, we're talking like old classic RPG style stuff where there's like lots of information and stuff.
Like 90s
so
type of
absolutely,
early 2000s. Like,
yeah, like definitely night and day in terms of that.
And and I think when they switched that around, when they made that transition from Fallout 2 to Fallout 3, they preserved some of that interesting kind of thick text, but the narrative itself was very one note. I did not like Fallout 3's story at all. I don't know what you think about it, but like, to me it was just very dry and very, I don't know. I mean, it all devolved to like a good or bad choice at the end, right? Where like, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and also, so you've beaten it, you said, right? Or no?
Sorry?
Did you say did you beat Fallout 3?
Fallout 3, yeah, I did.
Okay. So then you know that at the end you have to like choose whether to like infect the water or...
Yeah. Spoilers for Fallout 3.
Spoilers, yeah. Spoilers.
It's like a 10-year-old game. 10 years old,
yeah. Well, a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, hey, I have Fox with me, so I can send him in there and I don't have to die. But then you couldn't do that.
Oh, that's right, because Fox,
But, they did allow you to do that in a DLC, I think, but that was something people had a problem with. Yeah, that's also true that there's not a lot of morally gray type of stuff.
Yeah, it's not like
At the
Fallout
end.
New Vegas. And when people talk about Fallout and they bring up New Vegas, it's like I don't even consider that in the conversation, to be honest, because let's face it, is Bethesda gonna contract another studio to make another Fallout game anytime soon? I don't think so. I think I don't know. They could after what happened to Fallout 76, but I don't know. I think they're gonna leave the Fallout franchise alone for the next couple of years, and they're gonna focus on Elder Scrolls, and Starfield. But I don't consider not 76 New Vegas in the conversation because it was made by Obsidian, and also it's a vastly superior game to Fallout 3 and 4, in my opinion. What do you think? Are you of that same mindset?
Yeah, I, yeah, I'd say I probably enjoy that more than, like when I think of New Vegas versus Fallout 3, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, I'll probably play New Vegas.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can totally identify all the reasons why, but
I think
Um,
for me, it's mostly because of that point that you hit on before, that moral gray area. Just because
well, yeah, there's that. Yeah,
Fallout 3 never really touched on that. I mean, there are some side quests, I guess. There's that one with uh, that city that was in the middle of the wasteland. It wasn't Megaton. It was that other city that was like all of these. It was like all these like avant-garde rich people, and then like they had the ghouls.
Tenpenny Tower.
Tenpenny Tower. Yes, exactly, that one. And it was like you had to choose like whether or not to kill all the people in the right. Am I right in this?
Yeah, it's the one where there's a tower with like all the ritzy people,
Yeah.
and then there's a ghoul who wants to move in with all his ghoul friends there.
There you
They
go.
don't want the people in the tower don't want that because they're ghouls, and but
Right.
the ghouls need somewhere to live and not
See,
be in the
that
sewers
was
or whatever.
interesting. That was like this kind of like racial dialogue going on there. That was like interesting. I like that, and I remember that. I played this game like freaking 9 years ago, 8, 9 years ago. And I still remember that. See, I wish I saw that more in like Fallout, 4, Fallout 76. I'm not gonna play. I mean, I'm just not. So,
I actually learned something about that quest you're talking about
what's that?
recently. Spoilers again,
Mm-hmm.
if you're listening and you don't want to hear this. But apparently, if you let the ghouls come in, and you come back at some point later, if you go to the basement of the tower, you'll find the bodies of all the people there because the ghouls killed them.
Oh.
So
Oh, damn.
it's like a consequence that you couldn't really have
Oh,
accounted for.
wow.
But
So it's either you leave all of the rich people alone, or wow, I didn't know that. Cause I think
yeah,
I just
no,
kind of
it's
left
pretty cool because
them.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Damn.
So I mean, that's
Damn.
probably a decent example of a
I didn't know that either. That's
consequences
my
and
my
choice.
mind is kind of blown. Yeah. See, we're still talking about Fallout 3, like this one quest in Fallout. That's awesome. And I just, I just wish that Bethesda would go back to that. But oh well.
Yeah.
So speaking of AAA games, my news story of the week was of God of War creator David Jaffe. You might know of him by the Twisted Metal games too. He went on Twitter recently and he said that AAA games are more or less the same, and predominantly he talked about Uncharted 1, Drake's Fortune, and Uncharted 4, and how, yeah, like the graphics and the production values went up, obviously, but how the core gameplay was all the same. And, people kind of, they argued against him and so on, so forth, but he's saying that as he's speaking from the developer side, he feels like a lot of studios and companies are going against I don't know, not trying to go against the grain, but they're feeling a little, what's the right term to use here? Kind of worn out from essentially making the same games over and over again. It's an interesting discussion in my opinion, just because, obviously we're more of critics, we're more journalists, so we don't really have that knowledge of the inside, so to speak. We do have some, but we're not the ones actually making the games. So to hear him say something like studios and developers are being worn out and they're tired of making these same games over and over again, it's interesting. It's interesting to see how fans will react to this, 4 or 5 years from now, which is what he's saying. Fans in 4 or 5 years will also start to realize, hey, we're playing the same games over and over again, and they might want a change. Tim, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I enjoy the concept of, putting up some money and then like, oh, here's a thing. And I feel like I have always been okay with like DLC type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my head it's like, okay, so you made a product and I looked at it and I've seen reviews and whatnot, and I'm now investing in that. And then I do, it's great. And then, later down the line, maybe, you've continued to develop more on it because it's something you are proud of and enjoy, and then, for that, now you don't have to get it.
Right.
But if you want to, it'd be nice if you could, compensate us for that, which, it feels like, at least to a degree, that's fair. And some devs do like free updates, which is always really generous because that stuff takes time.
Yeah.
That can take, even small updates can take like a year or even more, just because there's so much infrastructure you have to account for, and old mechanics and balancing and tons of bug fixing. So it can, it can take a lot out of you, and if you're doing that for a living, it really does well to be getting compensated for that work.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because a lot of people, we've been seeing the term games as a service pop up, and much to the dismay of a lot of people. But then you kind of think about, well, what about a game like Hearthstone or
That's true.
Magic the Gathering, where they've already had the kind of like loot box type of thing, live service type of thing, because you have to invest in all these packs and whatnot. But I don't know that I've ever really heard people having a problem with that, and that's maybe because that's just a function of how that type of genre has always worked, even back before
Interesting.
it was a digital game, because Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, baseball cards, if you wanted to get that stuff, you had to keep investing money into it. So I wonder.
That's a very interesting take, yeah. Because
I wonder.
Yeah. I like that take, because it's like people in the, say, into card games, they're already kind of conditioned, let's say. I think that's a good psychological term, right? It's conditioned to buy these packs, buy these expansions. I know I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid, and I used to love going to the card shop and, buying cards, buying tins even, buying decks, just to kind of build my monster deck and, my magic cards and trap cards and stuff like that. So to do that, to apply that same logic in Hearthstone, I think that in even other card games, I'm assuming Gwent does the same thing. I'm assuming Artifact, Valve's new card game, will do the same thing. Right. So like, it's a very, I think that's kind of prying into that very specific demographics mindset. you see what I'm saying? It's opening up, like it's looking into their minds and saying, hey, you guys actually like buying into microtransactions, because essentially they are microtransactions, right? It's all in-game currency, in-game goods, and it's all kind of like it has no real-world value. So they're essentially buying into this kind of pool of business, and it's so interesting. And then when you apply that same logic to games like, let's say, Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's just so interesting to see the backlash, because people are not conditioned to play a shooter game, multiplayer-centric shooter game that has mobile-esque microtransactions built in. They're just not. That's just not something that they're used to, so they won't play it, and there's going to be backlash. See what I'm saying? I feel like right now, kids playing like Fortnite, playing like, I don't know, what's another game with microtransactions? PUBG, I guess, has microtransactions, right?
No, yeah. You can buy skins, and you can buy the battle pass.
Another good one, the NBA 2K series, which is like ridiculous microtransactions. Kids are playing these games. Like the generation after us are playing these games, and they're being conditioned to play games with microtransactions built in. So like when they grow up, microtransactions are going to be a natural part of the in-game ecosystem. That's just going to be how it is. And I don't know how to feel about that right now, me personally. But what I can say is, bring it all together, that this whole card game phenomenon is, very. The reason why it keeps coming up is just because it's an excellent business model. I mean, if Valve is cashing in on this, there's some kind of money in there. You know what I'm saying? So like, because they don't make games anymore. Let's face it. So like, I don't know. It's so interesting. The whole thing, and to talk about David Jaffe and what he thinks, and apply that to what I think. I think the reason why we're seeing the same games over and over again, like as he's saying, is because games are just so costly to develop nowadays. I mean, you're gonna sell at a loss. I feel like I was doing research on Jonathan Blow's latest game, The Witness, which came out. Are you familiar with that game?
What did you say?
Jonathan Blow, The Witness. It was the guy who made Braid.
Yeah.
I was doing some research on that game, and he said it took a year for them just to recoup the costs of making the game. He wasn't even making a profit in a year. He was just recouping the costs of development.
Wow.
And that was for a quote-unquote indie game. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the reason why developers are just, reusing assets and quote-unquote the game is the same is because there's so much risk. You're gonna the publishers pouring money into all these projects, and they need to have some kind of financial incentive. They need to have some kind of, return on investment, guaranteed return on investment. I don't think Rockstar, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 would have existed just alone as single player, just because it's Rockstar and they have money. But what kind of like spearheaded them to make the game in the first place and to introduce the online component was GTA 5, and it's the most profitable entertainment property in history. Okay, like, of course it's going to have an online component. Of course every Rockstar game from now on is going to have an online component. That's where they make the money. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not sustainable to just release Red Dead Redemption 2 of a single player campaign and then that's it. even if it did sell gangbusters, because it did, and that's to be expected because it's got tens all over across the board. That's to be expected. But after that, that's it. They're not making any money. Of course, they're going to release Red Dead Redemption 2's online component shortly thereafter. Of course, it's going to have an online component in the first place because it's not sustainable otherwise. You see what I'm saying? I get his point. I totally get his point. And I feel like in 4 or 5 years, it may change, just like how it did. This happened before. This happened, even when you're talking about the video game crash of the, I want to say 80s. This was before both of our times, so please forgive us if you're an older listener. But when pretty much all of these shoddy kind of, very low tier developers were just shooting out games, and they were so poor in quality that the market just crashed. And Nintendo had to come with quality control, found some quality control standards, and make sure that games were good again. It's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's not quite as dramatic. I don't think we'll face a video game crash anytime soon, but I feel like there's a imagination stymie kind of thing going on, which is why, I mean, it's partially one of the reasons why I like making this podcast, is because I'm so tired of open world games. It's the same thing for me. I'm tired of them, and I want to go back and just play more innovative games. So, yeah, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is where the really, quirky companies or people or whatever come forth, and they bring their indie ideas, and then all of a sudden we have like an Undertale on our hands.
That's true.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately there's probably tons of devs and games that really thousands of different games out there, so there might be some really great titles, but they just can't surface to the sea of content out there. But every now and then we do see this like weird new thing pop up.
That's
and at
true.
first it might be like, oh well, that doesn't, I don't know, that sounds very interesting, but then all of a sudden it just takes the world by storm for some reason.
That's true.
So we always have those little sparks of imagination to see grow.
I think referring back to that earlier time period of Nintendo's quality control and the video game crash, and then how before the time of platformers and stuff like that, or like after the time of platformers where everything was pretty much the same, back then they didn't have this kind of indie market. Right now we don't really have a middle market, right? It's just kind of like indies and AAA. Let's face it. I mean, there's very few mid-tier. I mean, I think THQ maybe, THQ Nordic, and that's really it. And maybe like Gearbox or something. I don't know. And then there's just this kind of gap, but I feel like prior to that, like the middle ground was kind of like where we saw a lot of the imagination kind of blossom. I mean, look at Rocksteady. Look at Batman Arkham Asylum. That was like a middle tier kind of game. Like that was back when Warner Brothers Interactive was still kind of like, not as big as they are right now. And so that kind of released, and now Rocksteady is what it is. It's this huge AAA developer. So like, I kind of miss that kind of sort of market. And I do feel though that like indie games are going to slowly kind of fill that void. Like we just saw this year, like Celeste, and we saw, I mean, even Undertale. I would consider that like low mid-tier market, like in the mid-tier market, but like low. Do you see what I'm saying? Because it's like I don't know, like the quality of that guy's games. What's his name? I forgot his name. The developer
Of who?
of Undertale.
Toby Fox.
Toby Fox. Yes, I feel like the amount of time and hard work he puts into those games makes it like ushers it into like another tier almost. It's like, do you see what I'm saying? Like it's just like it's so intricate that it kind of it's so different from everything else. But
I mean, it's just someone who really cares. I mean, when I believe when he made Undertale, he just didn't really have an intention, and I maybe even didn't really want it to become popular. And a lot of times, it's those kind of attitudes that it brings you the opposite of what you want. But he just seemingly just enjoys what he does, and he has really cool ideas, and it just shows through in what he does.
Right.
And now he just, I still haven't played it. I need to play it, but he released the first bit of Deltarune.
Mm-hmm.
Also completely free, by the way, which is pretty awesome. But
yeah, and he won't release more of that anytime soon. He said, like it's like this is like the first bit in a series of bits, but the next one won't be out for a while, at least from what I can recall. But like that's the thing though, like he's curated this fan base, and he takes time, like he takes his own time. There's no like I think he puts deadlines on himself, and there's probably some kind of arbitrary deadline that someone else makes for him, but like I don't know. I feel like the product is finished when it's finished, and he doesn't place these restrictions on himself, like how the AAA market does. Like where it's like, Naughty Dog typically releases 3 games in one console generation. Did you see what I'm saying? Like the first console generation, they had 4 Crash Bandicoots. Second, they had 3 Jak and Daxter. They had 4 Jak and Daxters. And then in PlayStation 3 they had 4. They had the 3 Uncharted games, and then The Last of Us. So it's like there's this constant kind of like deadlines to be met, but I don't feel like the AAA the indie market has more kind of breathing room, and that's where you're gonna see that imagination kind of blossom, in my opinion. But we'll have to see. I mean, I think we've already seen it, but we'll have to see if that middle market kind of gets filled even further in the future. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No, just we've also, it's good to remember, we've seen like maybe some AAA games are kind of the same or whatever, but we've seen a nice selection of titles like in the last couple of months. Like, of course, well, actually, God of War was like April or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But
April, May.
Yeah, we had that, which was people loved, and then we had Spider-Man, which people loved, and now we have Red Dead, which a lot of people really love. Yeah.
I mean, like he's talking from the developer side, David Jaffe. So like, I again, I can't really speak to that. I could speak more from the fan side, and yeah, fans are not tired of it. Obviously, they're very used to this formula, this kind of open world formula, if you will, because all 3 games that you just mentioned are open world games. They're all action adventure games, right? So I think that market is very used to receiving those types of products. What he's saying is that this market is probably going to get saturated sometime soon, and that people are just going to be playing the same games over and over again, even if it is, a different Spider-Man, or if it's like a different Kratos, or like it's Grand Theft Auto 6, but it's, basically the same gameplay mechanics as Red Dead Redemption 2. People are going to see this and they're going to be like, you know, what the hell? It's the same game over and over again. With the exception of Grand Theft Auto 6, that game is going to be the highest selling property of all time. You know, people are going to buy it. But like, as far as other games are concerned, that we might have some kind of threshold that we might reach where it's going to be like, hey, where's the innovation? I play video games for what's different about them, not what's the same. We'll have to wait and see. I'm very interested. I'm very interested to see if this actually happens, because it's happened before, like I said, and I don't know. It would spur a lot more innovation in the industry, which is what I'm looking forward to. Because like I said, I'm kind of tired of playing the same open world games over and over again. That's just me personally, but yeah, very interested to see what happens. So speaking of adventures and sweeping adventures across vast new worlds, let's get to our topic of the show. So
clever segue.
Pretty clever, huh? We're going to talk about an all-time classic, as so they say. It is called The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I said that right. Ocarina of Time, right?
I mean, however you want to say it, it's fine.
I'm saying Ocarina of Time. We're both gonna say Ocarina of Time, right?
No, I was gonna say the Orca of Time.
Orca of Time.
Disney creature. That's like some terrible knockoff from some other dev.
You know,
non-Nintendo.
If we went on Steam right now, we'd probably find that as some kind of shovelware title.
Oh yeah, probably. For like $2.95.
Yeah.
And it's one of those achievement farming games where you just get like 1,000 million achievements just for like sitting there.
Yeah. Pretty much. So Ocarina of Time released originally for the Nintendo 64, and that was on November 21st, 1998. So how old was I back then? 5 years old, I believe. Tim, how old were you?
I would have been 4.
There you go. Very young.
So,
but we're here to talk about if it's worth playing today, because obviously it's a long time, and a lot has changed since then. So, first thing to talk about is the presentation and the graphics. So, what do you think about the graphics of Ocarina of Time? How do they compare to today's presentation values?
Well, I've actually got it open right now because I was casually playing through it. I've still been listening, don't worry.
I see. So you've been
I contributed.
So I guess this is case closed, huh? Ocarina of Time is worth playing today because Tim clearly doesn't want to do this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I underestimated how much time it would take to get places, so
gotcha.
I didn't get very far. Yeah, I mean, now that I have it open, I mean, it's got that N64 look. Polygonal stuff. But I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it holds up pretty well. If you were going to compare this to like PS1 game, where like faces are like weirdly flat against the heads of like character models. I feel like this holds up pretty decently.
I like how you brought up that PS1, because I think that the Sony kind of spearheaded this this movement of polygonal characters and stuff like that with like Metal Gear Solid, and then all the platformers like Crash Bandicoot, etc. And like when I look at those games and how they're put together, and I look at Ocarina of Time, I feel like Ocarina of Time is just so much better. I don't know why. I feel like it's just very blocky. Do you know what I'm saying? Like when you look at the PS1 games, they're just like the characters. They feel like they're put together. Whereas in Ocarina of Time, it just feels like it's one piece. When you're moving around Link, he's just one piece. You know what I'm saying? When you're moving around Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid 1, it's like you're moving his body and then like his legs are moving along with it. It's weird, and it takes some time to get used to. Whereas in Ocarina of Time, it's very seamless. It's very like there's like no break in the immersion. It's just it's so like it's not night and day, but it is there is like it's a step up, I'd say, and especially if you look at Super Mario 64, it's like it's way better than that, in my opinion. What do you think?
Okay, like you mean Ocarina of Time is better than
Super Mario 64
graphically?
Graphically, yeah.
Was Mario 64 a launch title?
I believe so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well then, obviously that makes sense. Why?
Yeah.
Maybe it looks a little bit better.
Right.
And when did the 64 release?
96, I want to say. Let me see.
96.
Let me look that up. Yeah, I believe so. I believe it's 90. Nintendo 64. I believe it was 96 because the PS1 came out 95 or 96 around the same time, and they were like head to head. Yeah, 96.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then that would make sense. But it's funny because I at some point after growing up and playing Mario 64 again, you kind of realize how there's a lot of levels that are kind of like weirdly abstract, and they don't. It's less of like a full level in a world sometimes, and just like a lot of weird pieces put together.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like and this is not, by the way, the topic of the show is not 64 Mario at all. But yes, I feel like. It does feel like it's like an experiment, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was getting into a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It feels like parts that are, again, put together and like packaged as a whole. I'm not saying that it's not, seamless, that it's not like, that it's just not good, that it's not a good game, because it is a good game. But like, it just feels, I totally get that. But bringing it back to Ocarina of Time, I don't get that. I feel like there are some levels, that are a little stranger, I suppose. Like the dungeons, especially when you start getting to, I believe it's the lava dungeon. It is a little strange, and like some of the enemies just feel like I don't even know where the hell they're coming from. Like they're from like some outer space planet. It's just really weird. But I don't know. I feel like still it feels like Zelda. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's not as disparate as Mario 64. Like it all feels like it's one world, whereas 64 feels like it's a universe. I don't know if that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I mean that's a good way of putting it. It's like Mario 64 was, that was like the flagship, like starter sort of thing to be like, this is what 3D gaming is like. Oh my gosh! Right. And then, they saw that when, and then of course they had time over the course of 2 years to improve on that kind of look and how how games are going to be made now. Mm-hmm. And of course they had the time to make all the assets they needed for Legend of Zelda.
Right.
So right. I would say that that's probably pretty accurate. That feels more together and
cohesive,
less abstract.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to gameplay. So I should add this caveat. I was playing on my Nintendo 3DS. What were you playing on?
I'm actually playing the Wii Virtual Console version, which I got
Oh.
like 7 years ago or something.
Oh.
So yeah, I have like, so actually yeah, I have the original like graphics and stuff. I don't
Oh
have like the
wow.
updated 3DS ones.
Okay.
Um,
That's great because I'm gonna speak about gameplay from the 3DS version. Um, it's good. It's good but not great, and I'll tell you why.
okay.
Uh, the lock on and like the when you're playing, when lock on with enemies and you just kind of you strike them. You just I think it's A, right, or in the 3DS you just kind of mash away on A, and then you strafe around them, you roll around them, and then you hit their weak spots and so, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think it's the right trigger that you can use an item or an artifact or something, and then you could shoot like pellet seeds or something and flip a spider around, and then switch hit its weak spot, whatever, right? I feel like that all works fine. It's just that when it's mapped to those like that left trigger and that right trigger, this may be the fault of the 3DS in general. I'm not really sure, but I don't get the sensation when I'm playing Pokemon or something. But because you use these triggers so often, and because the 3DS's shape is so kind of not awkward, but it just doesn't feel very adequate for the hands. It's just like I don't know how to explain it. It kind of wears down on your hands, and it feels very. I feel like I'm so tired. Like my hands are so tired after playing it. Like after completing a dungeon, I would have to just like put my hand down and just rest it because I would just get so tired, of just using these triggers. And I'm using this blocky 3DS. I think it's the new 3DS, and it's kind of it's annoying. It was a little annoying for me. And then the other part about that was the gyroscope. I think it's called the gyroscope, where you're so basically when you're using the 3DS and you switch to the seed up thrower. Am I what is that called? The slingshot. The slingshot. I'm not stupid. Yeah, the slingshot. When you switch to the slingshot, it uses the 3DS's gyroscope. So you're basically like pointing and holding your 3DS up in the air and like shooting and then pressing A once you find the right spot on the top screen. It's just, oh my god, I don't understand why I designed it that way. It's so terrible. And like
I feel like there must be a way to like disable that and just go to normal aiming. Is there not a way to do that?
Yeah, you could just aim with the left trigger. You could do like auto target and then just shoot it. Like just shoot the seed or whatever, and you could just do it that way, which is what I did most of the time. But there are some moments where you would just have to like shoot like an eyeball over a door or something to like, or like shoot a pot or whatever, things in the environment. And in those cases, you couldn't lock on, so like you would have to revert to that first person view and use the gyroscope, and it was just so annoying. And don't get me wrong, these moments are like you could count them. I didn't count all of them, but like you can count them on your hand. And they're very few that you have to. It's obligatory, but like when you do use it, it's just like it's a headache, and I don't like using it. But aside from that, the gameplay is fine. I can see how this kind of revolutionized the action adventure genre. Just how the not the auto targeting, but the targeting system works, and how you just kind of swipe at enemies. It's just so cool. I mean, it's awesome. It's quick, it's fast, it's exciting. I love it. I love the gameplay aside from those little hitches. What do you think?
Well, I was, it's been a while since I played this, probably 5 years actually, or something. And I did beat it when I played it last. And a lot's happened and whatever, and I played other games and learned things. And so as I was playing this again, first time in a while, I remember a video that I watched Do you know who Aaron Hansen is? Game Grumps?
Yes,
Eagle
yes,
Raptor?
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have you seen his sequelitis video on this?
No, I have not. What is it about?
It's just about the Ocarina of Time.
Okay. Oh, okay. I thought it was
It's
like a parody or something.
oh no, he basically compares Ocarina of Time to Link to the Past.
Oh, okay.
And one thing he mentions, oh, and by the way, he actually, I can't, I don't think it's that he doesn't. It's not that he doesn't like Ocarina of Time at all, but he definitely doesn't prefer it over like A Link to the Past.
Interesting.
And obviously, a lot of people and a lot of, like tons of different magazines back in the day were like, "This is the best game of all time." Oh my gosh! And
Yeah,
people still
right.
say that.
Right.
But he doesn't really feel that way for a number of reasons. But the point I'm trying to get to, but I'm taking a long time, is he feels that with the gameplay, there's a lot of waiting. You have to like wait for a character to move. You have to wait for an enemy to expose their weak point before you can attack them. Otherwise, you're just like you said, you're strafing around them and rolling, and
right.
You're waiting for them to get to a point where you can actually damage them. You're waiting for like a cutscene to play out, and I did get this too a little bit, because I mean I played this game before, so I wasn't really interested in seeing all the text and stuff. But you still have to kind of wade through it, and it does go by a little slowly sometimes. And that's something that a lot of games deal with, where you can't skip text to. I mean, maybe even forgoing that, ignoring it, because a lot of games do that. But it's interesting because it's kind of right. I mean, there are a lot of times where you do have to wait around for stuff to happen.
It's true. I mean, I feel like that's...
Do you have any...
Yeah, I feel like that's true, but at the same time, it helps, it aids with the immersion, kind of. It makes it feel less like a video game and more like an adventure. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of like Red Dead Redemption 2, if we're going to be perfectly honest. Like, that meticulous, like, that very, like, cleaning your horse and taking a shower and trimming your beard and stuff like that. That all sounds boring. And it probably is boring in the game, because I haven't played it. But, like, it aids in this immersion. And the point I'm trying to get at with Ocarina of Time is that, like, strafing around enemies and kind of, like, throwing seeds at them so that they can expose weak points and waiting for them to drop on the ground, or etc., etc. It's like you're battling against this beast, like it feels like it's thoughtful. It feels like this thing is alive, and that you just can't, like, strike it down with a thing and be this god-like figure. Do you know what I'm saying? And I get that. I feel like there's a separation with a lot of video game fans in, like, playing the game as a game and then playing the game as a story, as an adventure. Do you know what I don't know if I'm being very clear on that, but, like, it's kind of like you're playing the game and it's a game and you're meant to win, right? And I can totally see his point there, where it's like you fight enemies, you kill them, you mow them down, and you feel good about doing that. But then there's like an other side of it where you're like, you play the game and you want to be Link. You want to be this character, and you want to just explore this world and, like, live as, the characters of this world and explore these environments and kind of, like, put yourself in, this character's shoes, in this chosen one's quote unquote shoes. And there are two ways of interpreting it. I totally get his way, though. I totally understand that. I don't see the game as that. I don't see the game as purely just a game. I see the game as an adventure. So I don't necessarily agree with it, but I totally see, like, that's a totally valid assertion in my opinion. Because ultimately it's a game.
I think he does see it as like an adventure, in that the problems he has with it can get in the way of that. So like I guess like a counterexample is like in Dark Souls, because in Dark Souls it's kind of similar. You have target locking, you can dodge and stuff, but for the most part you can always do damage to the enemy. It's just a matter of making sure that you don't get hit back, because they can, you can always attack them and they can always attack you, and that can end in a couple different ways. You can be careful and have like a sort of long and drawn out fight, or you could totally destroy them with like a really good sensibilities and knowing their attack patterns.
I see.
Having like appropriate weapons and stuff, or they can easily just destroy you as Dark Souls does, and that'll be it, and the battle's over, and you die and respawn.
But throughout that experience, you could like strafe to the side, swing your sword or whatever, and like knock out a couple hit points, and then it won't be a lot of damage, but it'll be something. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Whereas like in Zelda, there's like I just fought this. There's like these wolves you can fight, and you can only attack them after they've attacked you. And if you try any other time, it's your sword dings off because they like defended themselves. So it means you have to kind of wait for them to like crawl, like insert, like sort of walk around you in circles, and then eventually they'll approach you and like they'll swipe at you, and then their attack will bounce off your shield, and then you can attack them. So I guess from his point, it's just that's right. He said it takes the control away from the player, because they're like depending on the enemy to like dictate the flow of the battle, because the only time that the player can attack is if the enemy attacks. So it becomes kind of like a waiting game of like however long they decide to walk around you and then hit you, and then you can finally attack back. So I mean, I can definitely see that point, because like, again, in Dark Souls you can kind of just take control, and if you screw up and die, then it's basically your fault. Or you can take advantage, and if you know what you're doing, you can get rid of enemies pretty quickly. But I mean, even if it is it doesn't. I think you mentioned about like mowing down enemies,
right?
Like quickly, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be like that. But like even if it's a long drawn out battle, at least if you're always able to like do something, it feels better than having to kind of sit around. Until they're vulnerable. But anyway.
That's a good point. It is. I didn't see that entire point, and I apologize. But like,
no.
I understand it now. It's like, I understand. To Zelda's credit, and I totally agree with this this opinion. I agree with it. To Zelda's credit, though, I don't know if games at the time were that sophisticated. I don't know.
I mean there's also that. This was new, and
right. I feel like with like back then it was still like, if you look at RPGs at the time and stuff like that, which I feel like Zelda was kind of somewhat grew up with RPGs and kind of incorporate, like if you look at Zelda 2 was like a very RPG driven game. And like from then, it just kind of incorporated a lot of RPG elements up until now, until Breath of the Wild. So like, I feel like you have to kind of consider its roots too. RPGs and the market at the time, I feel like a lot of games at that period in time were based on A and B interactions. Like even if you look at other polygonal games, like, I won't say Super Mario 64 because that's not really relevant, but like if you look at, look at Metal Gear Solid, and like, did you play Metal Gear Solid?
Yes, a while ago, I think.
I feel like with that game, it's very much the same. It's the same thing where it's like there are periods in time where you just can't You just can't shoot the enemies. Like there's this one, and I don't ask me the name. I don't know, but there's this one guy with like a Gatling gun, and you just can't shoot him when he's shooting you, because if you do, you're gonna die. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like you have to wait until he's stopped and he, re-ups his gun that you could shoot him. That's just how it is. It's like It's like A and B conversation, like a chess match. Nowadays, that's not how games work. It's not. It's everything's dynamic. Everything's working in real time. But back then, I don't know if they had that capability. I just don't know.
Vulcan Raven.
Vulcan Raven. Yes, I knew it. I was gonna say crow. I knew it had something to do with a bird, and I was like, I'm not gonna say crow because I don't want to sound stupid. Yes, Raven. Yes. I was like, I really don't want to sound stupid right now, but yeah, exactly. Where that moment sticks out to me because it's very much like you have to, comb through the environment and then wait for him to shoot, and then you could shoot him back. And I think it works the same with like Sniper Wolf. It works the same with Liquid. It works the same with Mega Rex in the end. Spoilers. It's literally like a 20-year-old game, so like get with the program. But like yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know if they had these kind of like fighting games. Like even this is another good question. What about fighting games? Did they have this kind of dynamic gameplay to them? Were they like Virtual Fighter, Street Fighter 2? Did they have some kind of like you could inflict damage at the same time type of thing? Or is it all based on A and B?
I have like no experience with fighting games.
Okay.
Because I generally don't like them. So I have no idea.
Right.
But
right. It's somewhat of a rhetorical question. Yeah. Sorry.
You mean like are you talking about like person versus person or like just a single player type thing?
Either or. To be honest.
I mean, I feel like when it's two people fighting each other, I feel like, I mean, I would imagine that you can always hurt the other unless you do like a dodge type thing or like a shield like they have in like Smash Brothers. But otherwise, it's free game, like totally. Mm-hmm. You're totally open to damage.
It's curious to me because it's like if I put two Rios next to each other, facing each other, and I pressed like, not Hadouken, but like whatever, like an uppercut, which would they both hit? Would they cancel out, or like would one hit the other and not? You know what I'm saying? Like it's just very intricate gameplay design that I don't know if was possible back then. I definitely don't think it was possible with these more action adventure style games like after the aforementioned Metal Gear Solid and of course Ocarina of Time. With fighting games, I don't know, but fighting games I feel like they're made so differently that it's like I don't even know if it's comparing apples to oranges. I don't know. I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but there's a siren going off outside my window. That's great.
Yeah, I hear it.
Yeah, I know. It's literally outside my window.
They're coming for you, David. They know.
Yeah, I know, right? I badmouthed Fallout 76 too much.
That's right.
Bethesda's out to get me. No, I just don't know. It's an interesting kind of question to throw out there. Okay, moving on to Ocarina of Time's sound design and music. What do you think of it, Tim?
Obviously, a lot of that stuff is classic, and you hear it, in remixes and whatever today. Mm-hmm. Like still, even over all this time, and probably for good reason because a lot of good tunes in there. Even like the short little songs from that you learn on the Ocarina. I mean, of course, there's Song of Storms and and other ones.
All the other ones.
Blanking.
Yeah. That one and all the other ones. I don't know them. I know
all the songs. Yeah.
Yeah, the opening song.
Name right now.
I love just leaving my 3DS open and just like listening to the intro music play. I mean, it's amazing, you know. But here's a question: do you think that a lot of why we think that the music is so good is because we just kind of grew up with it? We grew up with hearing it all the time, and like we're just so familiar with it that we just say it's good just for the sake of saying it's good, or like because other Zelda games has really good music too. I mean, Breath of the Wild has great music. I think Skyward Sword had fabulous music. I don't know. It's I feel like Ocarina of Time's music. Yeah, sorry.
No, wait, hang on. You say your thing first, and then
I feel like Ocarina of Time's music just is so ingrained in pop culture that like we don't really question it at all. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's kind of like this magnum opus, like it's like this is the pinnacle of video game music, and we don't think of like other Zelda games and how they kind of innovated on that formula, and how like not the formula but on the sound design and music. I don't know. What do you think?
Let me hang on. Let me see if I'm trying to. I have the music on. I want to see if you can hear it.
I can actually a little bit. Oh yeah. I can hear it. Yeah.
There you go. Nice. I mean, freaking that song.
Yeah.
It's stuck in your head.
I know. It's just like grand adventure type of song. It's true. Yeah.
Or like has some good like boss music, like particularly at the end.
Oh yeah.
Final fight.
Yeah,
no, I mean, and the other, I had it in mind, but I forgot when I was trying to think of it. But Gerudo Valley, that's a great one.
Yeah. That's a great one. Oh yeah. Where it's like rocky and roll. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah,
I really like that one. Yeah.
So I mean, definitely. I mean, nostalgia always plays a part, some degree sometimes. But
I suppose
there are some legit, like, good things in here.
Yeah.
You can easily like get in your head.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it goes by unquestioned for good reason too. It's a bit of a not a stupid question to ask, but it's kind of like prior to this, what music did we have from Zelda games other than like the 8-bit tracks? And like Zelda 2, I guess, had some stuff. I'm not too familiar with Zelda 2, to be honest, but like I think this is the one that really changed the game.
Well, I mean, even musical cues, like da 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 da.
Yeah,
something like that. That's iconic.
I feel like, and that wasn't the first Zelda game to use that. No.
No. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, the secret, like da 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 da. That one wasn't the first one. I don't know about the one I just said before.
I don't know. That's a good question to ask. Because if that's the case, then yeah, for sure. Like, there's no reason why Ocarina of Time should not go unquestioned. But like, I don't know. It's always worth to kind of like, temper our look back and temper our kind of devotion to a game and be like, hey, this type of stuff wasn't so great. But like this in this case, I feel like some of these tracks are like they were passed, like Gerudo Valley. I feel like that track in Ocarina of Time was passed down to other Zelda games to the point where like you're almost expecting some variation of that same melody in Twilight Princess, in Breath of the Wild, in whatever area is reminiscent of Gerudo Valley in a future Zelda game. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it set up like this foundation, which I just feel like it's just that's why it makes it so important from a musical perspective. So anyway, let's put all three of these things together. How does it last? What's the lasting appeal of this game? Is it worth playing in 2018, Tim?
I think one of my favorite things about playing an older game is if it's been a while since I played it, or if it's something I played like in my childhood, I realized that there's probably going to be things that I misunderstood or didn't know about or didn't bother exploring or whatever. And it's always kind of cool to go back and be like, oh, I could have I missed all these things, and now I can be kind of a completionist. So being able to go back and do all these new things or learn new things I didn't know about is always really cool. And I actually found a couple of things that I didn't really do as a kid. And I think one thing I actually didn't know is that you can avoid damage by rolling. Like if you're locked onto something, you can roll and you actually avoid damage. And I don't think I knew that. And
Wow.
Maybe that's just my own obliviousness of not reading a sign that was in front of me. But I was like, wait, what? I didn't even know that was a thing. And then
I didn't know that either.
well, yeah, there you go. Also, in the tutorial area of the Kokiri Forest, there's they teach you how to dodge and roll and do all this stuff. And there's this area where you can practice and do that. And I didn't know that, it says, oh, you can do this thing. And then it's you probably, most people probably figure, oh, cool, I can do the thing. And you just know that. But if you actually, they have an area for you to practice that in. And if you actually do that and do the practice and lock onto these rocks and do the different moves, they actually give you some money, which you'll wind up, eventually using to buy the first shield so you can go to the first dungeon. But that's another thing I didn't really know. Yeah.
Shit. I wish I knew that. Instead of just cutting down grass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh shit.
And then when you leave the forest, I always remember to the left there's this massive, huge, horrifying creature thing. And if you go up close to it, it starts just coming out of the ground and coming after you. I was like, oh frick, I'm not doing that. But for the sake of being different and doing things I didn't try before, I went over to it and was like, I wonder if I could because I figured I couldn't kill it because it's so big. But I tried. All I had was my slingshot, so I was like, oh, all right, well, I'll try that. And it turns out you can kill them. Which I just didn't know because I never tried as a kid. And then
what does it reward you with?
It sometimes drops just a handful of rupees, which isn't that much, but
okay.
When you're first starting out, it's useful. And then again, something I'd always do as a kid was just dash right to the castle, especially since the days are so short. So if you don't do it immediately, you get locked out for the night and you have to wait till the morning.
Yep.
I figured, once I killed that thing, I was like, let's just hug the edge of the wall here, just kind of see what's over here, because I didn't think I'd really been over that way before, and I'm actually pretty sure I hadn't. It was cool, just finding new things and probably doing what I should have done in the first place. But
no,
point is,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just, and I also found some rocks and stuff, which of course I know that I can blow up eventually. So, I definitely felt excited to be able to revisit these places later once I have more stuff and I can maybe find more things that I didn't find So basically it was just fun to explore and try new things I hadn't before and see more of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like it replicates an open world experience, or it's reminiscent of our open world experience that we're used to today, but somehow, some way, Nintendo managed to put it in this package that, like, I don't know how to explain it, man. It's just, it feels like an open world experience sometimes, just the way that you play. It's not nearly as big as, the games that we played today, obviously, but somehow or another, it just, like as you just said, there are these pockets where you don't see them, you just haven't discovered them in years, and then you finally discover them, and you're like, wow, I didn't know this even existed. Even the rolling thing that you just told me now, I was like, damn, like that's pretty cool. I'm gonna try that out actually, and I don't know. There's so many secrets, and it's just so, like, rich with content. It's quite amazing, to be honest. Even today, with all the games that we have on the market, I feel like, going back to the news story that we have for today, and David Jaffe, about how he talked about a lot of games feel the same. I feel like one thing for me personally that a lot of open world games have today is this kind of, like, collectathon thing going on, where it's kind of like you're searching through this world just for the sake of collecting things, just for the sake of, like, filling out your bestiary or whatever. And in the sense of Zelda, it's like that's kind of unneeded. Like with a lot of open world games today, it feels almost like necessary. In Zelda, it's kind of like you don't have to do it, but you should, and you will. Do you know what I'm saying? It's very optional, and because it's so optional, it makes you want to do it more than something that almost feels necessary in an open world game. I know I just kind of almost said the same thing twice, but trust me, I mean two totally different things. I feel like it, I just feel like somehow or another it just captures the sense of imagination, the sense of creativity that it's so lacking in games today. That, like, you could very well go through Zelda, go through Ocarina of Time without doing these things, but you won't be immersing yourself in the world properly. Whereas in other games, it feels like in modern games, it feels like you have to go through the world. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to explore a lot of the areas in order to get the most out of it. I don't know. It's just it's amazing to me how this seems so imaginable. This seems so creative and imaginable, and this was released 20 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? The gameplay things that, like, don't hold up, as I mentioned to you before, especially on 3DS. I don't know what they were thinking with the gyroscope thing. Totally don't understand that. But the game looks beautiful. With the 3D on, it's like, oh my god. It's just like Jesus. It's like, it's amazing. No, it's seriously, like, it's beautiful, and the sound design is awesome. It's iconic. I don't know how much of that is based in nostalgia, but for me personally, I feel like it sets this precedent where a lot of games can follow. So I'd say it's definitely worth playing in 2018 if you definitely if you haven't played it already, because it's just gonna put you in this grateful attitude, I guess, because this is where open world games, I feel like, were born, and where they could look into going forward to kind of inspire themselves for the future. What do you think, Tim? Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, I also would probably recommend playing this as well, because I, like I said, I kind of look forward to getting further where I can have more tools and explore more stuff and just see more things, and
Yeah.
especially in terms of getting stuff that I hadn't before, and just seeing more areas of the game.
Yeah. So if you haven't played it already, play Ocarina of Time. You owe it to yourself to do that because it's definitely a must-play game, especially now with the 20th anniversary. You gotta play it. I don't care if you're playing Fortnite all day long, every day. Play this goddamn game. So next week we're gonna play Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Why are we playing a Star Wars game next week? This game kind of revolutionized how 3D open world environments work, and the graphics at the time were like really great, supposedly. I don't know. I didn't play the game back at the time, but I will play it in time for next week. It's also celebrating its 20th anniversary in December. Yeah. Are you looking forward to Star Wars Rogue Squadron, Tim?
I mean, at least in terms of seeing what it's like, because I've never played it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty unfamiliar with it too, so we'll see how it plays. Okay, moving on to what are we playing next week? Aside from the aforementioned Star Wars Rogue Squadron, Tim, what are you going to play for next week?
Good question. I don't know. I've kind of busy, getting busier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the holidays.
I don't know. Maybe just Minecraft again.
Yeah, I know. It's a good kind of thing to fall back on, right? To have like this one game where you're just kind of, chipping away and not chipping away. That's a very boring term to say. But like, you know what I'm trying to say. You're just kind of like constantly in already. You're already so invested that like you just keep playing it, and it's very easy to fall back on, as opposed to something that's new where it's kind of like it feels like you got to put more time into it. As far as what I'm going to play Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Actually, what I was thinking about playing was I think PlayStation Plus offered Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of the first Yakuza, if I'm correct. And I've never played a Yakuza game before. So, Yakuza or Yakuza? I'm not sure. My girlfriend's Japanese, but I still don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah, I think I'm gonna play that, a little bit of it, just to get a feel for it, see if it's as good as people say. Probably won't get far, but yeah, gonna crank away at it at least. Okay, so that about wraps it up for the second ever episode of the Time Hop Podcast. Thank you all for listening. You could find us on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play, and of course, Podbean, where we are being hosted natively. Any closing thoughts, Tim?
Be safe. Do make good choices. Probably avoid drugs. That's a good one. Oh, yeah, stay in school. If you're in school. Stay in school.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, unless it's not for you, but stay in school otherwise.
Exactly. I echo those same sentiments. I definitely stay in school and don't do drugs. At least not the hard ones, because those are really gonna fuck you up. And play some Minecraft. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Play some Minecraft. Okay. Thank you for joining us this week. Join us again next week for Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yep.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.